Viserys Targaryen's death in House of the Dragon marked one of the most pivotal moments in the Targaryen civil war, the Dance of the Dragons. His passing, though tragic, set off a chain of events that irrevocably altered the course of history in Westeros. But what if Viserys hadn't died? What if the fragile king, plagued by illness and paranoia, had lived long enough to make a lasting impact on the fate of his house and the realm? How would his survival have changed the volatile political landscape, and would it have prevented the brutal conflict that followed? To explore this what-if scenario, we must first acknowledge the state of the realm at the time of Viserys' death. As king, Viserys ruled a Targaryen dynasty still reeling from the loss of its former power. His father, King Viserys I, had left the realm in relative peace, but Viserys, though well-meaning, struggled to maintain control. The primary issue? Succession. Viserys' decision to name his daughter Rhaenyra as his heir, against the wishes of many in the realm, set the stage for division. The question of who would inherit the Iron Throne was central to the conflict that would ignite civil war. Had Viserys lived, he would have had more time to solidify his claim and ensure the peace he sought. First and foremost, he might have found a way to resolve the tensions between his daughter, Rhaenyra, and his younger brother, Prince Aegon. Viserys' death left a vacuum that both Rhaenyra and Aegon sought to fill. However, if Viserys had lived, his authoritative presence could have provided the kind of leadership that might have convinced both sides to back down from an inevitable war. Though Viserys lacked the political cunning of his forebears, his devotion to his family and the throne could have allowed him to negotiate peace before things escalated. One of the most likely scenarios, if Viserys had survived, is that he could have further cemented Rhaenyra's position as heir. While Viserys initially struggled to assert her right to the throne, especially in the face of intense pressure from his council and other powerful houses, his survival would have allowed him to enforce his will more firmly. His death at such a critical moment gave rise to the Rhaenyra vs. Aegon rivalry, which eventually plunged the realm into a brutal civil war. By living longer, Viserys could have dispelled doubts about his daughter's claim, especially among the influential lords who were hesitant to back a female ruler. Viserys' personality also played a role in how the realm viewed his leadership. Unlike his more forceful ancestors, Viserys was a relatively gentle soul whose attempts at diplomacy and unity were often undermined by his own court's machinations. Had he lived longer, there was a possibility that his softer approach could have helped mend fences between the houses of Westeros, including the fractious relationship with House Hightower. The Hightowers, who were deeply entrenched in the politics of kings, landing, were a key factor in the division between Rhaenyra and Aegon's supporters. If Viserys had lived, his presence might have provided the legitimacy needed to quiet their opposition to Rhaenyra. However, there was also the question of Viserys' health. His deteriorating physical condition during the final years of his life could have still been a point of contention. Even if he had managed to outlive his illness for a time, it is possible that his health would have remained fragile, leaving him less capable of navigating the increasingly complex political landscape. This scenario could have had its own set of challenges, as factions in the realm would likely have been hesitant to follow a king who was visibly declining in strength. His illness might have led to further instability as his reign dragged on, leading others to question whether he was fit to rule at all. Another critical element to consider is Viserys' relationship with his family. His relationship with his wife, Queen Aemma, had always been one of affection, but their tragic history had been marked by the loss of several children. Viserys' devotion to his children, particularly Rhaenyra, was clear, but the internal Targaryen family dynamics were anything but smooth. With his continued survival, Viserys might have had more time to bring about reconciliation between Rhaenyra and his younger sons. His death had caused a rift between the Targaryen children, with Aegon and Rhaenyra becoming rivals. Had Viserys lived, he might have been able to find common ground between them, avoiding the bitter rivalry that tore the family apart. Beyond his immediate family, Viserys' death gave rise to larger political divisions, with houses Baratheon, Valerian, and Stark all making alliances with either Rhaenyra or Aegon. His survival would have drastically altered these alliances, preventing some of the bloodshed that would follow. Rhaenyra's faction, which included the Valerians and Starks, might have had greater cohesion under Viserys' leadership, while the Baratheons and Hightowers may have been more inclined to settle for peace, avoiding the costly wars that followed. With Viserys as king, it is possible that these tensions could have been diffused before war became inevitable. In terms of the political future of Westeros, Viserys' survival would have also impacted the future of the Iron Throne itself. While Rhaenyra would still have had to prove herself as a capable ruler in her own right, Viserys could have laid the groundwork for a peaceful transition of power. He might have ensured that her claim was not just acknowledged, but supported by the various factions of the realm. The Dance of the Dragons, a bloody and destructive civil war that tore the Targaryen family apart, might never have occurred, or at the very least might have been less devastating, if Viserys had had more time to secure his daughter's throne. The absence of Viserys, particularly at such a crucial time, created a void that others quickly filled, each with their own ambition for power. If Viserys had lived longer, it is possible that these power-hungry figures would have been kept in check. His wisdom and moderation, while not always effective in life, could have provided the stability needed to steer the kingdom away from the destructive course that it ultimately took. In conclusion, the question of what would have happened if Viserys Targaryen had lived is a profound one. His survival might have meant a more unified and stable Westeros, one in which the Dance of the Dragons was avoided. While Viserys' softer leadership style would have faced challenges, his presence might have been enough to secure Rhaenyra's claim and prevent the political chaos that followed his death. Ultimately, the survival of Viserys would have changed not only the fate of House Targaryen, but the future of Westeros itself. As Viserys Targaryen's reign continued, his survival would have altered the trajectory of the realm in profound ways. By preventing the chaos that came after his death, he could have kept Westeros from falling into the destructive civil war known as the Dance of the Dragons. His leadership, though often criticized for its indecisiveness, may have been the stabilizing force the realm needed. However, Viserys' survival would not have eliminated all challenges. The Targaryen family was deeply divided, and the political climate in Westeros was fragile, with key players always ready to shift their allegiances for personal gain. The key aspect of Viserys' continued rule would be his ability to maintain the balance of power within the realm. Despite his weakness and illness, Viserys was a king who understood the value of diplomacy. His devotion to his family, particularly his daughter Rhaenyra, was unwavering. Viserys' survival could have allowed him the time necessary to further secure Rhaenyra's position as his heir. By doing so, he would have silenced any doubts about the legitimacy of her claim, especially among the factions who saw her as unfit to rule because of her gender. One of the most important consequences of Viserys' continued life would be the preservation of the Targaryen line without the catastrophic rift between Rhaenyra and her half-brother Aegon. Viserys' death sparked the bitter rivalry that tore the Targaryen family apart as both Rhaenyra and Aegon fought for the Iron Throne. The animosity between the two siblings grew into a full-fledged war, the Dance of the Dragons, with catastrophic results. Viserys, however, might have played the role of a mediator, guiding both his children towards reconciliation. Aegon, in particular, could have been swayed by his father's influence to accept his sister as queen, or at the very least, to have deferred to her authority. This would not have been an easy task, as Aegon's desire for power and his sense of entitlement were formidable. His ambitions were always clear, and even with Viserys's calming presence, there was a strong possibility that the rift between Aegon and Rhaenyra would have remained. However, Viserys could have sought a middle ground, perhaps offering Aegon a prominent role in his court, or granting him control over a powerful region in the realm to satisfy his ambitions. This could have been a political maneuver that would have kept Aegon loyal to his sister, preventing the war that ultimately shattered the Targaryen dynasty. If Viserys had successfully reconciled the Targaryen siblings, the political landscape of Westeros might have been dramatically different. Without the War of the Five Kings, the realm would not have been torn apart by the internal strife that followed Viserys's death. The influence of House Hightower, which played a significant role in supporting Aegon's claim, would have been less pronounced. Hightower's political maneuvering during the Civil War allowed them to become one of the most powerful families in Westeros. But under Viserys's leadership, their power could have been curbed. Viserys might have been able to negotiate with House Hightower, ensuring their loyalty without allowing them to control the direction of the throne. In addition to reconciling his children, Viserys's continued life would have given him the opportunity to strengthen alliances with the other powerful houses of Westeros. His relationships with House Stark and House Velaryon were already in place, but they were fragile. A prolonged reign for Viserys could have solidified these alliances further, ensuring that the North and the Vale would have remained loyal to House Targaryen. Such alliances would have created a formidable power base, with the support of the Northern Lords and the naval prowess of House Velaryon backing his claim. Viserys's leadership could also have shifted the balance of power with House Baratheon, particularly if his survival allowed Rhaenyra's eventual coronation to be achieved without the threat of civil war. House Baratheon, which had supported the Targaryens in the past, might have been swayed by Viserys's efforts to restore the unity of the realm. By ensuring that his daughter ascended to the throne without the bloodshed that followed his death, Viserys could have preserved peace with House Baratheon and maintained their loyalty, a vital element in securing the Targaryen dynasty's hold on the throne. Another major consequence of Viserys's survival would be the treatment of the dragons. By the time of his death, the Targaryen dragons were on the decline. The events that followed Viserys's death, such as the brutal civil war and the devastation caused by the infighting between Rhaenyra and Aegon's factions, saw the extinction of many of the dragons. These great beasts were the key to Targaryen power, and without them, the family was vulnerable. If Viserys had lived, he might have been able to focus on rebuilding the strength of House Targaryen, including securing the future of the dragons. His prolonged reign could have allowed him to invest in restoring the Targaryen legacy, ensuring that the family's power remained intact. Despite these advantages, Viserys's continued survival would not have been without its challenges. The political and military landscape of Westeros was shifting, and even with his efforts to secure peace, Viserys could have faced an inevitable reckoning. His reign, though marked by attempts to preserve peace, would have been tested by the rising ambitions of the houses of Westeros. The Lannisters, particularly Tywin, would have been a force to reckon with, and their eventual involvement in the politics of the realm could have been a destabilizing factor. Viserys's ability to navigate these complex alliances and keep his family united would have been essential to his survival as king. In conclusion, Viserys Targaryen's survival would have dramatically altered the course of Westeros's history. His death created a vacuum that led to the Civil War and the eventual downfall of House Targaryen's dominance. Had Viserys lived, he could have preserved his family's reign, prevented the devastating conflict that ravaged the realm, and ensured a smoother transition of power to his daughter Rhaenyra. While his reign would have faced challenges, particularly from ambitious factions, Viserys's diplomatic skills and his ability to unite the realm under his leadership could have secured a lasting peace for the Targaryen dynasty. The Dance of the Dragons might have been avoided entirely, and Westeros could have entered an era of stability under the Targaryens, with dragons soaring once again over the Seven Kingdoms.